Uh, Hello, Brobs. We're back with Harvest Home by Thomas Tryon, a 1973 horror novel, which is coming rapidly to a conclusion. Only about 50 or 60 pages left, and we're on chapter 26, which is the end of part 3, I believe. Chapter 26, The Goddess. I comprehended it, or thought I did. The doll in Justin's cornfield represented the mother. The mother was the goddess. The goddess provided fertility. Fertility was needed. Without it, there would be no corn. Without corn, no money or food. Without them, people died. Doll, mother, fertility, hope, belief. They all believed, all the village. They wanted me to believe too. It was shocking, yet terribly simple. And Harvest Home was coming. Harvest Home, a time of joy and celebration. Eat, drink, and be merry. It means success and thanks in all good things. But this, the seventh year, was special. Not all good things, perhaps, what no man may know, nor woman tell. This was the heart of it, a secret revealed, but what? I slowed my car as the Tatum farm rose at the crest of the hill on my right, the silhouetted buildings bleakly huddled together. There was no sign of the pickup truck, nor indeed of any activity other than the youngest girl, Debbie, standing in the dirt track, twisting the hem of her dress and wailing, evidently frightened by the fierce clamor of hogs in the pen near the barn. I stopped to investigate. I could hear the pigs' grunting bodies heaving against the sty, their wet eyes inquisitively surveying me. A board had become loosened, and I pounded it in place with a rock, then drove off, begrimed with a runny nose. Hey, it sounds like me. Debbie watched me go, "Who's this? I don't know much about the book you're reading, but I like to occasionally join your stream to listen. Enjoyable, it helps me sleep." Yeah, I've heard I put a lot of people put a lot of people to sleep. Hello, Brobs. Beyond the house, the landscape lay in somber peace. A smoky haze drifted over the cornfield, the cornstalks lying helter skelter among the bearded stubble, the shocks diminishing in size as they stretched away from the road to the ridge. Behind them slid the sun. Hello, Robs. Yeah, I'm having a great day with this stuffed nose that I just had 2 weeks ago. Pulling to the roadside, I gazed off at the desolate vista. Then, listening carefully, I got out, crossed the road, and stepped into the field. Dead stalks cracked underfoot. From somewhere ahead in the field was coming a strange sound, an uncanny hollow clank or rattle, faint at first, then more distinct. In the amber light, the hulking sheaves seemed forbidding, sinister. Then I recognized the sound tin cans swaying on the ends of their strings. The pebble inside making a dull clanking noise, but doing little to repel the two crows which, shiny and black, sat huddled like felons, one on each shoulder of a solitary scarecrow. Pardon? Hopefully that clears up my voice a little. It was impossible to account for the tumult of the pigs. Squeals and cries pierced the air as their fury drove them to fresh efforts to break from the sty. I got back in the car and began driving down the road. Then, behind me, I heard Debbie's cry. I looked back to see her dashing for the porch. As the boards of the pen gave way and the pigs raced past her, charging across the lawn, heads lowered, a tide of frenzied shapes spilling down the slope and into the field, their short legs trampling the earth, overturning the piled shocks as they swept across the furrows. Debbie sat down on the steps and wailed louder than ever. Lights had come on in the windows of the houses along the way, and I could see people sitting down to early supper before kindling night. I was tired and awash with guilt. I cursed myself for a fool, scarcely remembering the scene with Tamar on the mud bank. Not what had happened, but how it had come about. Arriving at the country end of Main Street, I drove past the dark figure of a man leaning on a rake handle, watching piles of leaves smolder and burn. As the smoke drifted blue and pungent, I heard the sound of a horse's hoofs and the familiar creaking of wheels. Ahead, the Widow Fortune's buggy emerged from Penrose Lane. The mare looked docile as she moved along. Not so the old lady, who sat upright on the seat, her shoulders thrown back, her hands gripping the reins. I couldn't see her face, only the white cap tied under her chin. Nor did she notice me coming along, or if she did, she made no sign. She wheeled onto Main Street and headed the horse in the direction of her house. I watched the white cap disappear into the gloom. Then I drove into the lane. Hello, Ned. Maggie Dodd was out in front of her house, laying plastic covers over the flower beds. Along the side of the hedge, I called good evening. I've just been putting my bulbs to bed. Have a good day? Yeah, he had a great day. He was banging some chicken up a creek. I made some reply and turned into my drive. The invisible voice came from Robert's sun porch. Beth's station wagon was in the garage. Leaving my car in the drive, I went in through the kitchen door. There was no light on except for the fluorescent stove panel, which glowed eerily. Kate was standing by the table, not doing anything, just standing there. Hi, sweetheart. I laid down my sketching case and kissed her, dredging up a semblance of cheerfulness. Hi. Nice day? Yes. What's wrong? Nothing. She picked up my case from the table and laid it on the counter, then stood with her back to me. I went to her and turned her, holding her face between my hands. She looked pale, a little tired. Nothing? Honest, nothing. Where's Mom? She nodded toward the closed door of the Bacant room, beyond which I could now catch the low sound of the TV set. Kate placed something in my hand, my pencil flashlight. I borrowed it from your studio. Okay. She started out, stopped in the doorway with a look I couldn't read. Then she went out through the hall. I dropped the flashlight into my jacket pocket and opened the Bacant's room. Beth did not look up as I came in, but sat on the green velvet sofa, hands folded in her lap. Hello, I said. Hello, an imprecise emphasis, betraying nothing of her present mood. No martini? No, I didn't think so. Tonight. Guess I'll have a scotch. All right. Anything wrong with Kate? No. I made a drink, then sat down on the club chair. A small fire crackled in the grate, and a large bowl of fresh chrysanthemums bloomed on the Victorian sideboard. I moved a copy of House and Garden and put my feet up on the coffee table. Have a nice day? I asked over Walter Cronkite's voice. She placed her palms together and nubbed them with a slow rotary motion. Did you? I tried to force my voice to sound casual and light. Yeah, I was out at the Hookses. How are they? Okay, I guess. Sophie seems upset for some reason. I wanted to make a couple of sketches of the pear tree for the painting. In the light from the screen, I could see a little furrow of impatience appear between her brows. She picked up the remote control and switched off the set. I sipped my drink, watching the firelight play on her face. Cozy, I said. She turned on the floor lamp and pulled her work basket to her. You all right? I asked. Yes, of course. She gave me a quick glance, then drew the quilt onto her lap and pulled the needle out. I listened to the ticking of the Tiffany clock. Coming right along, I offered, referring to the quilt. Yes, I should have it done by Christmas. I held my glass up, watching the play of firelight in the swirl of amber scotch and ice cubes. I caught her staring at me, her eyebrows lifted the faintest fraction. Then she resumed her work. Something was terribly wrong, I could tell. Her face was pale. She needed lipstick. And, she said, hmm. And then what did you do? After the hookses? Oh no, here comes my nose. Dripping like a faucet again. Yes, I went to see Dr. Bonfils. She gave me a quick, tight glance, then looked down again at her work. I put my glass on the table and sat beside her on the sofa, trying to take her hands. I'm sorry, Bethany. Sorry? About the baby. He told you? Yes. He shouldn't have. He should have let me. She made a futile gesture with her shoulders, then laughed. It appears I'm a wishful mother, nothing more. Beth? Please, I don't want to talk about it. It's not you, it's me. She shook her head uncomprehendingly. There's no fetus, nothing growing in me. I know, I'm sterile. It was the mumps. The doctor did a test. You can have children, but I can't. It's my fault. It's not me? No, me. She paused, holding herself rigid, motionless. Then she visibly relaxed. She dropped her head to hide the tears in her eyes. It's all right. It doesn't matter anymore. She spoke calmly, matter of factly, dismissing the topic, as if we'd been discussing an unfortunate change of weather. I stood up and looked around the room. It suddenly seemed different. Not a room we had made, part of our house, but simply a room. I glanced at Beth. She seemed different, too, somehow. A stranger wife. I knew she was upset about the baby, but there was something else as well. Something she had not said yet. She raised her head. What is it, Ned? I was wondering. What? If maybe we ought to move. She looked at me, then around the room, then shrugged her shoulders. I don't understand. I mean, I'm thinking maybe we ought to leave Cornwall Coombe. Sell, get out. What on earth for? She laid aside her work and gave me all her attention. I don't know. I just have this feeling. Where would we go? And again, I never heard anybody say, back to New York, maybe. Europe, maybe. But we've been so happy here, have we? I thought we were, and if we haven't really, Ned, I don't think you've given this much thought, have you? I mean, it isn't exactly fair to Kate, taking her out of school again. And there's all the work we've done on the house, the money that's been spent. We can get it back. On a resale? I don't think so. Why not? Because they won't. Because somebody isn't just going to buy us out and move in. Why? Because she looked at me, because they won't let anybody, not just anybody. Weren't we just anybody? No, we weren't. You know that. They wanted us. The hell they did. Yes, they did. It took some time, but they did. The widow wanted us. Did she? I set my glass down rather sharply. You knew that. No, I didn't. Well, she did. That was the reason Maggie called us. It was all because of the widow, you mean? She arranged it? Yes. What a fumble fuck that was. She could arrange for somebody else then. I don't think so. Bethany, listen. I don't know what's happening around here, but I don't like it. I don't know what's happened to you or to us or to anything. I want to get out now. Get the hell out of while we still have the chance. Can't we? Beth, remember Paris and the lilacs? I remember. We could go back to them again. You've got lilacs outside that window if you can wait until spring. Besides, who can ever go back again? Can we? Sometimes it's not a bad idea going back. I want to go ahead. To where? I'm not sure. Bethany, yes. Do you remember that night? Which? That night. The experience, yes. That was arranged too. Who? Who do you think? When I came into our bedroom, you had been watching, hadn't you? I mean, you'd seen. Seen what? Whoever it was that came out of the cornfield. No, I didn't see anyone. I was waiting for you. I was. What? Dreaming, I imagine. Ned, listen. Some things are better left not talked about. Some things are better left unsaid. I felt like it. I like it here. You've liked it here. Kate does too. It's the first time I've felt safe. I saw it then. In Cornwall Coombe, she had found a place. She was secure. And not only secure, but changed. It had become more and more apparent. Not only city mouse into country mouse, she seemed in some way on the brink of something, as though poised for some indefinable leap. I saw her as she had been, blazing with unfulfilled yearning, something she had been searching for, baby, loss. There are things women long for, and longing ought to be given their way. The widow, Edna Jones, Asia Minerva, Ruth Zalman, mothers, all of them, all mothers, for her, mothers, and the mother. You don't like me very much, do you? I said the words before I realized it. I love you, she replied simply. It's not the same, is it? It's not the same at all. You make all the decisions, he said. You always decide what's to be done. Even about coming here, you decided. I'd like to do my share. Is that what you want, to run things? Go ahead. I finished my drink. Or do you want to run me? Some women do. I'm not that kind. Make sure you're not, or go find another fellow. She gave me a long look, then drew out her needle again. How was the rest of your afternoon? All right. I went for a swim. Can you beat that? This time of year? What happened to your lip? Huh? Oh, I must have hit it on something. A rock, maybe. Remembering how I must look. I started quickly for the kitchen. Guess I'd better change. What's for dinner? Crab casserole, Ned. Yes. I don't want to sound like true confession, but tell me it isn't true. What? That you raped Tamar Penrose? Oh, listen, Beth, the widow in her buggy and I had thought the old lady wasn't interested in gossip. Beth was returning my look, waiting. I tried to fumble an explanation. I had no defenses. How could I explain what had happened? What excuse could I make? Beth, listen to me. It's not the way you think. It's not that way at all. It happened, but it didn't happen that way. She says you raped her. It's not true, Beth. Listen. I am. Her tone was weary, as if she weren't really interested. I pushed the table aside and crouched, took her hands in mine. They felt unresponsive, lifeless. I had so quickly run out of anything to say. She faced my imploring look quietly with no sign of emotion. Why did you promise? I meant it. I meant that promise. Honest to God, I did. Then, but not now. Beth, don't listen to them. Don't listen to what they told you. Let me tell you what they're like. I didn't want you to know. I didn't want to tell you because I know how you feel about her. About whom? The widow, Mary Fortune. But she's not like that at all. Now the words came spilling out, and I told her about Jack Stump, about the attack, about the paper from the 1B Weber's tea box, about finding the shears. She tried to pull away, and I held her by the wrist, forcing her to listen. And that's not the worst. They killed Grace Everdeen, murdered her. She pulled away again and jumped up. Don't talk such rubbish. I had never seen her look so angry. After what she has done for us, after saving our child's life, after the days and weeks she spent in our house looking after us, cooking for us, helping us, you try to make me believe such things. You must take me for a complete fool. You made me a promise, which obviously was impossible to keep. You had to have her, not just have her, but against her will. It wasn't against her will. And then to get out of it, you tell terrible things about the widow. Everyone knows who attacked Jack. Everyone knows Grace Everdeen committed suicide. She didn't. I can prove it. The widow. Stop. I don't want to hear any more about the widow. Not another single word. Her face was drained of color. Her mouth was pulled down in an angry curve. Her body trembled just because you've had a lark in the woods with the town slut. And you're sorry. Oh, yes, you're sorry. Not sorry you did it, but sorry you were found out. Did you think she'd never tell, never say anything? And just because you were found out, you try to turn the facts all around. You try to besmirch the name of the finest woman who ever walked God's green earth. She murdered Gracie Everdeen, she and Tamar and the rest of the women on Harvest Home. Don't speak about Harvest Home. You don't know anything about what no man may know, nor woman tell. I could not resist the taunt. She started forward, then managed to restrain herself. I could not believe what was happening. I fought down a feeling of panic. She was going to tell me again, and she had that other time, that she was going away, that she wanted to leave me, to take Kate, get a divorce, just as it had happened then. Still, I could not resist. They're murderers. The word hung there, sounding ridiculous. Murderers were people you read about in the paper in New York or somewhere, not in Cornwall, Coombe. I looked at her, then away through the dining room doors. My eyes absently traveled the Shanghai Tea Party. Ships in the harbor, coolies with pagoda shaped hats, familiar and curiously real. I looked back, I went on. I can bring you proof. She was making visible efforts to keep herself calm. She pressed her palms together again, rotating one against the other. Bring it. It won't prove anything. Her eyes were wet. Her chin took on the stubborn tilt that had been her father's. I will have the child. I will. I will. In the blind and futile assertion, I sensed the kind of withdrawal. At that moment, she looked quite strange, not only in her features, but in her whole manner, her being. A sudden flash went through my mind that she wasn't Beth at all, but someone else entirely. She stared back, saw, failed to recognize me. The stranger husband. Each of us now was imprisoned behind the bars of mistrust, of doubt, of disappointment. What could heal the breach? For no apparent reason, I thought of the rainbow we had seen on that first day, bridging us between the life we had known and the life that was to be. This was the life that was to be. This room would be peopled with ghosts, not of others who had inhabited it, but our own. Future ghosts, relics, specters of a might have been. At that moment, I knew we were doomed. She had already retreated from me spiritually. Now it would be physically as well. She would leave me. I will. I will. With her free hand, she struck the flat of her stomach. If there is no child here, it's because you couldn't put one there. I'm not the barren one. You are. I looked at her again, backed away to the door. Murderers, I said. Said again I would bring proof. Upstairs, Kate's door opened. Her footsteps sounded along the hall. I opened the front door and stepped out. Kate was coming down the stairs. Closing the door, I heard from the other side the whispered word, Mother. But it was not Kate who whispered it. I drove to the bait shack. Mrs. Brucey was doing things in the kitchen. Jack was in the chair by the fire. He seemed not to know me at all. I suspected they must be keeping him drugged on something the widow had concocted. He looked at me as I fumbled inside his shirt, but showed no sign of recognition. Mrs. Brucey came and stood in the doorway, watching. I pulled out the red cloth bag and tugged it open, then inserted my finger and felt. It was empty. The ring was not there, the oddly shaped bone ring that had been not the widow's charm, but Gracie Everdene's engagement ring, which I had seen hanging at her throat in the doctor's x rays. I dropped the bag back inside Jack's shirt. Mrs. Brucey was smiling at me, saying nothing. The evidence gone. Jack stumped, cut, and stitched. By the women, because why? What were they trying to hide? The peddler had been silenced because he had found Gracie. Gracie had been murdered because, blighted, she had come to Harvest Home. Harvest Home? What happened on Harvest Home? Suddenly I became terribly afraid, and as suddenly I felt certain that worthy Penninger had never left town at all. Thankfully, I'm dying here, so this is nice. At the common, the street lights had been turned off, and in the dark, the villagers waited expectantly for the bonfire to be lighted. I pulled my car up near the post office and went looking for Amos Penrose, stopping to stare up at the gigantic wood structure towering 30 feet and more into the air. The doors of the firehouse were thrown wide, and the beams of the engine headlights illuminated the applauding crowd as the apparatus was brought onto the turf, and hoses were run to the hydrants. The ladders that had been used to build the pyramid and to set the scarecrows on it were taken to the curb and stacked, while the firemen that had been while the firemen donning their helmets, walked around the base, moving the spectators back to a safe distance. I found myself caught up among them, and as I backed away with the others, the firemen rang to fling burning torches onto the pile. The bonfire began in clear, limpid pockets of bright flame, glowing here and there. Then, as the wood and debris gradually caught, it became an awesome sight. I stopped where I stood, watching it grow, the flames slicing their way up the outside shell, orange, yellow, red, eating away at clapboards, boxes, beams, whatever they discovered, while from the wooden heart of the pile came the roar of the conflagration. Turn the page. Of its own volition, the crowd retreated from the intense heat, and into this widened breach leaped a troop of living scarecrows, an array of ragged, wildly prankish, straw clad figures, bobbing and turning, doing a crazy dance while the onlookers joined hands and began circling the blaze in a clockwise direction, forming a great urgent chain. What's the opposite of clockwise? Widdershins. Scornfully, I watched it like a grotesque sports rally, and as they passed, link after link in their human chain, I hated them. These hayseeds with their stupid dance, their stupid singing, their stupid beliefs. The old ways, how I despised the phrase. I moved aside as more came to break their way into the circle, which grew larger, spreading out toward the edges of the common, moving counterclockwise. There we go, Widdershins. Counterclockwise now. Then, without apparent signal, the moving circle bulged outward toward me, hands parted, arms lifted over my head, and I was swept up into the line by two incredible straw and rag men, who seized my hands in an iron clasp, drawing me along with them. Their effigy heads nodded at me as I too was forced to participate, moving faster and faster, the great blaze spinning past my vision. Another circle appeared before me, countering my own circle, and dark heads passed before the flickering light like figures in a silent movie. I was pulled along, the circles broke and reformed into a serpentine braid, human ropes weaving themselves together while the fire mounted. Within the labyrinth of movement, distinguishable faces appeared, Roberts, Kates, Beths, and faceless details. Mr. Buxley's clerical collar, his wife's hat, the widow's bonnet whirling, kaleidoscopic, another face, rubicund, choleric. That's him, cried Irene Tatum. That's the one let the hogs out. Debbie seen him. He let the hogs out deliberate. I could feel her hands snatching at me from behind, tugging at my clothes, trying to yank me from the circle. But still the straw hands held me fast, and willy-nilly I was dragged away. The line swept out again, and like a giant amoeba, divided itself from the larger circle to form a smaller one. Someone shoved me, and I was propelled into the center. Wheeling, I saw fire-washed faces, peripheral, and with the sheen of exertion on their brows, now bright, now dim in the leaping light, all somehow sinister. They closed in on me with menace. I could feel the press of bodies, feel their hot breath, the air being pushed from my lungs by the sheer force of their weight. Quickly they moved toward me, and as quickly withdrew, as if I were the butt of some enormous joke, and all was merriment. Once more, as they rejoined the larger circle, bringing me with them a swirl of leaping forms, my scarecrow cronies gripping my hands as they circled the flaming heap. The rancorous hag cry sounded again. Let my hogs out! As I passed, the voice fading, becoming lost, and pull as I might, I could not free myself. I gave up all resistance. They took me where they might, and the scarecrow men were laughing and nodding at me as though I were not in thrall to them. Their jester faces wild, looking upward at the whirlwind of fire and smoke. See, see, their eyes glittering with ardor as they reflected the blaze. I looked up too, saw a picture no man could paint, or scarcely dream. Saw a hell of burning scarecrows, straw and sacking and button eyes, cross poles and uprights, huts, hats, that is, and coats, all lost in flame, a holocaust of straw men. Saw in the picture one higher than the rest, arms outstretched in cruciform supplication, leaning backward into the fire that licked at the tattered war tunic, the tarnished epaulettes, the cocked hat, saw the wind enfold the flames around the face, as though in a caress. Worthy, the scarecrow in the field, the pigs gone mad with the scent. I shouted and struggled, but they held me and pulled me back. As in the picture, the giant structure seemed visibly to swell, to belch and heave in its last convulsive throes. Shouting with all my might, I saw it lean away from the wind, totter, tremble, and with a thunderous crash of flame and charred timber, the hideous pile tumbled to earth. Still I shouted, saw people fleeing past me to safety, saw hot sparks spiraling upward in a fiery shower, saw the ashes borne like feathers on the breeze, sifting in a gray, spectral snow among the tombstones in the churchyard, saw a hand raised over me, brought on my head in a savage blow, saw the picture crack, break into fragments, saw nothing. And that's the end of part 4. Exciting. Oh, many more pages. Is it 400 pages, I think? So basically 40 some pages. That's 27, so 28 must be short too. Tis. Anyway, that's all, bros. Oh my gosh. Turn that motherfucker off. What is this? There we go. Pause it, boss. Pause it, boss. Almost blew out my fucking nose. Holy shit. Yo. Alright, let's see what the hell this is about. What the hell's going on here? That's weird. Very weird. Very strange. Alright, Bubs, that's all.